The AP Top 25 poll for Week 7 of college basketball was just released, and although there wasn't a lot of changes near the top, we still had a lot of movement throughout the rankings. And in today's video, we are going to be breaking down the AP Top 25 rankings, starting at number 25 and working our way to number 1. But before we get into the AP Top 25 poll, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And now, let's jump into it. And as always, I want to quickly go over some of the teams that are receiving votes but just missed out on the rankings. And first we have USC, who won the Maui Invitational earlier in the year and is now 10-1, and the Trojans have looked good for the most part, and I have them just outside of my top 25 as well, but they have an injury-riddled roster right now and will need guys to get healthy before the thick of Big Ten play. Next is Iowa, and this is my first team out of my top 25, and the Hawkeyes have dropped 2 of their last 4 games, but both of those losses came to top-ranked teams in Michigan State and Iowa State, and they came close to beating the Cyclones in that one as well. And Iowa is currently a top 20 team at KenPom, and with a couple more wins, they should find themselves in the top 25. And I had to mention Seton Hall as well, because what Shaheen Holloway is doing there is absolutely incredible. The Pirates are 10-1 so far and actually look like a team that could get to the NCAA tournament, but we'll have to see how it goes once Big East play starts here soon. And finally, you have UCLA, who dropped out of the top 25 rankings after their loss to Gonzaga this past weekend, and Kentucky, who is trying to climb their way back into the rankings after their double-digit win over Indiana. But jumping into the rankings, we have Georgia, who debuts at number 25 after improving to 9-1 and is powered by the fastest pace and most explosive offense in the country that's scoring 98.3 points per game, which is best in Division I. And the Bulldogs dominated Cincinnati with an 84-65 win last week, outscoring the Bearcats 47-28 in the second half, and their lone loss on the season remains a 3-point overtime loss to Clemson. And while the schedule has been lighter to start, SEC play will define their ceiling, starting with a massive opener against Auburn here soon. Next, we have Virginia, who remains at number 24 with a 9-1 record and has continued to look like one of the most undervalued teams in the poll. The Cavaliers cruised past Maryland Eastern Shore 84-60 last week, showcasing strong team defense and discipline in that one, and freshman guard Chance Mallory has impressed me early on, while Tice DeRitter and Johan Grunlow have been outstanding. And with only a quality loss to Butler on the record, Virginia has multiple ACC opportunities ahead that could fuel a steady climb up these rankings. Florida drops to number 23 after a split week that included a 77-73 loss to UConn and then a 10-point win over George Washington, and offensive struggles remain the concern for the Gators, especially turnovers and inconsistent guard play, although Xavier Lee has shown signs of momentum recently. But Florida is now just 6-4 on the season, but SEC play offers a clean slate for them, and with improved efficiency from their backcourt, the Gators have a shot to rebound and turn the season around, and I think they might do just that. St. John's held firm at number 22 in the AP poll and now has a 6-3 record, and though the resume remains thin against elite competition as they are 0-3 against ranked teams, defensive struggles have been the reason as it's plagued them this season, but their recent wins over Ole Miss and Iona is where they held both teams under 65 points, which they're showing progress in that department. And the Red Storm will now open Big East play against DePaul before a massive showdown with Kentucky, and this could be a stretch that could dramatically reshape how this team is viewed nationally. Auburn stays at number 21, and they do have one of the more battle-tested resumes and are currently 8-3 on the season, and all 3 of those losses came against currently top 10 ranked teams, including a 1-point loss to Houston, and they do also have wins over the likes of St. John's, NC State, and Oregon, which carry some weight. And last week, the Tigers beat Chattanooga 92-78 and now head to face Purdue, which will be a prime opportunity to secure a marquee win and rise up the rankings. Up next at number 20 is Tennessee, and the Volunteers are coming off a long layoff, and their previous 3 results were all losses, most recently a 75-62 defeat to Illinois, and Tennessee hasn't played a game since early December, which makes their upcoming home matchup against Louisville a pivotal game, and a win could stabilize the season and halt their slide back in the rankings, but another loss may send Tennessee further down the poll or even out of the rankings completely. Texas Tech checks in at number 19 after their loss this past weekend to Arkansas, and this game really exposed some depth concerns for me beyond Christian Anderson and JT Toppin, as both stars delivered in the game, but the help was limited around them. The Red Raiders now sit at 7-3 and face a defining week ahead as they're hosting Northern Colorado before a big game against Duke at Madison Square Garden, which could either restore some confidence in the Red Raiders or accelerate their slide down the rankings. Another team that dropped in the rankings this week was Illinois, who now finds themselves at number 18 after suffering their first home loss in a 3-point defeat to Nebraska. An interior defense remains a glaring concern and was especially highlighted against the Cornhuskers, especially once the perimeter pressure breaks down, and which led to some lineup adjustments, including David Merkovich being benched. And despite the flaws, Illinois still carries a Final Four ceiling in my opinion, but their defensive consistency will ultimately determine whether the Illini can stabilize or remain vulnerable against ranked competition. Next, we have Kansas, who moved up to number 17 following their gritty 77-76 overtime road win at NC State, which was fueled by Melvin Council's breakout performance where he dropped 36 points in the game, and the Jayhawks continue winning despite the injury concerns surrounding Darren Peterson, whose health remains pivotal for their season success. But now they're 8-3 on the year, and Kansas looks increasingly dangerous as the supporting cast continues to step up, and they have a lighter matchup against Towson upcoming, which provides some breathing room before tougher tests arrives, especially in the Big 12. Alabama slips to number 16 in the AP poll after their 21-point loss to Arizona, but the concern level remains minimal to me given the Tide's brutal schedule to start the year. All three losses came against top 10 teams, while wins over Illinois, Clemson, UNLV, Maryland, and St. John's still anchor a good resume, and Alabama's identity hasn't changed, but Arizona is simply one of the best teams in the country right now, and they have a home game against South Florida upcoming, which offers a chance to reset before conference play begins. But one of the biggest winners of the week was Nebraska, who surges up to number 15 in the latest AP poll, and they stayed perfect on the year and are 11-0 and are owning the nation's longest active winning streak still. And they have road wins at Illinois and also a 30-point blowout of Wisconsin, which has validated the Cornhuskers, with Price Sanford's 30-plus point performance standing out against the Fighting Illini. And this offense looks great. They are unselfish, decisive, and constantly moving. And while this ranking may be Nebraska's ceiling right now, Big Ten play offers plenty of chances to prove it belongs even higher. And another big winner this week was Arkansas, who climbed to number 14 in the AP poll after impressive back-to-back wins over ranked teams like Louisville and Texas Tech. And this team has one of the highest ceilings in the country with the talent level they have. Trevin Brazile has been consistently excellent. The freshman duo of Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas is dominant. And then you have Billy Richmond, Carter Knox, Malik Ewan, and others, which provide even more elite talent. And this Razorbacks team looks like a team that could get into the top 10 here soon, and Arkansas looks capable of winning the SEC if this momentum holds. Vanderbilt jumps to number 13 and remains unbeaten at 10-0, and it's reaching its highest ranking since 2012 in this week's AP poll, and with wins over St. Mary's and VCU that help highlight a legitimate offense, though I will admit the schedule strength limits further movement for now, but with SEC play that's coming up, it will ultimately determine Vanderbilt's ceiling, and a road matchup with Memphis looms here this week as another key opportunity to prove this start is sustainable and that the Commodores belong among the nation's best. Another team that moved up was North Carolina, who moved to number 12 in the rankings after an 80-62 win over USC Upstate and improved to 9-1 on the season. And for me, the Tar Heels feel fairly slotted here based on their resume and strength of schedule. And though they do have a soft upcoming schedule that limits immediate movement for now, but the potential return of Seth Trimble adds optimism for this season, and a matchup with Ohio State presents another key opportunity to strengthen their profile and push towards that top 10 ranking. Louisville remains at number 11 even after obliterating Memphis in a 99-73 win, where they shot 55.5% from the field and hit 18 threes in the game, and with wins over Indiana and Memphis that help reinforce some of their quality, but they do have a head-to-head loss to Arkansas, which caps their upward movement for now for me. And at 9-1, Louisville heads into a massive road test at Tennessee, which will be a game that could justify a jump or confirm its current placement. The BYU Cougars check in at number 10 and firmly look like a true top 10 team to me, and I actually have them at number 9 in my rankings, but a dramatic buzzer beater win over Clemson highlighted the Cougars this past week, with Debanza driving the comeback and reaching 200 points in his first 10 games, and now at 9-1, BYU's offensive structure can punish teams with weak interior defense, and Big 12 play will be unforgiving, but this group looks built to survive it and maybe even finish near the top. Another team that stayed put was Michigan State, who finds themselves at number 9 again after surviving a tough 76-72 road win at Penn State and improved to 9-1 as well, and that game reinforced how difficult Big Ten road trips can be no matter who they're playing, but the Spartans closed strong when it mattered, and with early conference success and balance on both ends of the floor, Michigan State remains stable at where they are, and now they'll have home games against Toledo and Oakland, which should keep momentum before the schedule tightens in the new year. But we did have some movement in the top 10, with Houston sliding back to number 8, and this was largely due to movement above them rather than their recent performance. But now the Cougars are 10-1 and remain elite defensively under Kelvin Sampson, and they have some freshmen that are steadily improving in Kingston Flemings, Chris Sinak, and Isaiah Harwell. But a 1-point win over Auburn continues to anchor that resume. However, they do have a one major non-conference opportunity remaining against Arkansas, and this matchup could push Houston right back toward the top tier of the rankings. But the team that jumped Houston was Gonzaga, and they moved up to number 7 after their 10-point win over UCLA this past weekend and are now 10-1 on the season. And that lone loss was a 40-point defeat to Michigan, but which came under extreme scheduling circumstances at the Players Era tournament. And the metrics remain glowing for the Zags, with Gonzaga being ranked at number 2 in KenPom and top 6 on both ends with offense and defense there. And they have a final non-conference test against Oregon coming up, which provides another chance to strengthen its resume before WCC play. Purdue is at number 6 and they stay there, but have a strong resume and enough to withstand a single bad loss to Iowa State, with big wins over Texas Tech and Alabama that continue to define their profile. And after solid performances recently in Big Ten play against Minnesota and Marquette, the Boilermakers now face number 21 Auburn this week, which is a matchup that offers another high leverage opportunity to move back toward the top 5 of the rankings. UConn remains at number 5 and continues to look like one of the most complete teams in the country to me. At 10-1, the Huskies own wins over BYU, Illinois, Kansas, and Florida, with their only loss coming to Arizona, while missing key players like Taurus Reed and Braylon Mullins in that game. And they have elite late game execution, and Danny Hurley's coaching stands out, and he looks like one of the best coaches in the sport still. And Big East play sets up UConn to dominate and enter March with minimal losses, in my opinion. And moving into the top 4, we have Iowa State at number 4, and they are unbeaten at 11-0 and are backed by elite physical defense and efficient scoring on the offensive end. A blowout win over Purdue continues to anchor one of the nation's strongest resumes that the Cyclones have, and despite no movement this week, Iowa State has given voters no reason to doubt them with their win over Iowa, and if this defensive intensity holds, which it should, Iowa State looks locked in as a legitimate 1-seed contender for March. Duke also holds steady and comes in at number 3, and they're still unbeaten at 10-0 after a week where they didn't play, but they're still quietly stacking up high-quality wins over Michigan State and Florida, and they do have a high leverage matchup coming up against Texas Tech at Madison Square Garden this week, and their resume already screams 1-seed just like it did last year, even without dramatic poll movement, and this will give them another chance for Duke to separate itself and potentially challenge for the top 2 spots with a win over the Red Raiders. Coming in at number 2 is the Michigan Wolverines, and although I had Michigan as my number 1 team, I have no concerns with them being listed at number 2. They are unbeaten at 10-0 and continue to profile as one of the best analytical teams in recent memory. This past week, they had a 100-point road performance at Maryland, which showcased their offensive ceiling, even with the team struggling in the first half, and they're balanced on both ends and just feel like an extremely safe pick right now and are one of the best teams in the sport. Yaxel Lindenborg looks amazing, and so does that front court, and I just continue to trust what Dusty May is doing there in Ann Arbor. And coming in as the number 1 team in the AP poll this week is Arizona again for the second straight week, and the Wildcats are unbeaten at 9-0 and own the best resume in college basketball, hands down. They were coming off a dominant neutral court win over Alabama, which was powered by Braden Burry's 28 points, which reinforced their standing as the #1 team. And with Braden Burry stepping up, and then you have guys like Koa Pete and Jaden Bradley, this team is looking unstoppable right now and is definitely the favorites to win the Big 12. And this looks like one of the most complete teams in the country and clearly the team to beat at this point. But that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on this week's AP Top 25 rankings in the comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.